What's going on, people? In this video we're going to cover the Season 2 changes for Yoshimitsu and how they affect him as a character. And I figure what better place to do that than right here in Bandai Namco's headquarters. So let's get right into it, starting with this new move, his up forward 1-1 string. It's a 17 frame mid string that puts him right into Flea stance at +9 on hit, which is nice because then your Flea 1+2 is uninterruptible and will cause a counter hit. So if anyone tried to jab that immediately. So not the worst thing to do in neutral, but it is also something that's pretty good to use as a combo ender, because now you can do your Flea mix-ups. What you observe is that since I was into no sword stance, this is the distance that he gets put away from. The non-no sword version, he ends up a little bit closer. So your options for Oki is going to be a little bit better out in the open when you use the one sword stance version. This move is also -9 on block, and he does not transition into Flea when it's on block. So not too many worries there. So his old up forward one has been moved to up 1 as his advancing chop, and his old up 1 has been moved to up back 1 as the chop that stays in place, meaning that his one that retreated is completely gone. This means that when you try to do your spike combo, you're going to need to use the up back version of the move, rather than the up version, because that one will just give the that sword stab, which is not what you want. Yoshi's other new move is now his Kinsho forward 1+2, which gives a +14 on hit and also +14 on block, and also puts him in Flea and on hit or on block. So this is a very useful way to get into Flea stance, especially when you're pressuring with people with your Kinsho stance in neutral. A lot of times you're going to respect it because he has a lot of faster options that people want to respect. Another important aspect of this move is that it's also a counter hit launcher. So very deadly move, very good move to have, and a very nice option to use with the rest of your Kinsho options. Another important thing to know is that even though it looks like you have a ton of frame advantage after landing 2-2 to get this for free, just keep in mind that you can still get power crushed out of it even at that frame advantage. So it's not free by any means, but the opponent will definitely need to make a hard decision in order to combat this move and interrupt it. Something I forgot to mention is that both of his new moves heal health on hit, and when in heat, consume some heat gauge. It's worth noting that his up forward 1-1 consumes heat even if you don't finish the string, unlike his 1-1 string that actually consumes heat after you use the hit that converts your health. So it's up to you to see if it's actually worth using. It might be better to just do it in no sword stance where you do not consume the heat meter. So you might have noticed that both of those new moves from Yoshimitsu allow him to transition pretty safely into Flea stance, and it seems like they really want to legitimize his stance, and there's a lot of changes to Flea stance as well that accommodate that. Most notably is his Flea jump. It is now no longer unblockable, but instead gives a hefty amount of chip damage as well as plus frames when you land it. It is a crouching guard when they recover, so it's very limited options. They really need to hold Flea stance again once they get hit by this. Now that's no longer unblockable, its properties on hit is also very different from what we're used to. It is now a normal hit launcher using his Flea 1+2. Overall, I think this is a pretty big buff to his Flea jumps situation. Just remember that on block, you still have this heavy minus frames on block, and when you try to get his backside there, he still has that hitbox in the back. So really be careful. Even when you sidewalk this thing, that you use the correct punish. So even though it's no longer unblockable, it's still a threat. Change to his Flea is now his Flea 1+2, which used to be a high normal hit launcher. It is now a mid only counter hit launcher. So oh. So now you get a class launcher. All your regular B&Bs work with it. Just a very standard launcher. Now on counter hit for using Flea 1+2. The other big change to Flea is his Flea walk stance. First you have like a pseudo stance out of Flea where you do this walking animation. From here you can do certain moves. But now they sped up the ability for you to do those moves. So you don't even see the animation. It comes out a lot more quickly, and those moves that come out of it are a lot more viable now that they've been sped up. So just a reminder, Flea Walk 2 is a homing high out of into Dragonfly. Flea Walk 3, very damaging mid attack that converts into a throw on clean hit. Very punishable while blocked, by the way. And then also his Flea Walk 4. His Flea Walk 4 has been changed so that it goes into Indian stance on hit. On block, let me see if I could do something on block here. So on block, he's at -9 and does not go into Indian stance. So I think at -9 down here, you might be able to. You're exposed to a follow-up attack, some kind of ground attack or whatever. So, but not too bad. And then you still have your other Flea options as well. So all these changes together really make Flea a stance that you really have to watch out for. You can go into a lot more sequences that loop into each other, and it really makes Flea stance a part of his very tricky playstyle for Yoshi. Okay, so that's it for his Flea stuff. So let's go into a little bit more of his other move changes. Starting with his Meditation 1. Now this is able to do just by pressing 1, makes it a lot easier to perform. Which is basically his back turn down 1. Now you just get 1 right out of Meditation stance. Previously you needed to do your cancel out of Meditation and then press 1, but it's a little tricky for do if you haven't practiced it. I personally have not practiced it, so this change is great for scrubs like me that don't have that very good execution. But for people that have practiced this, it might be a little bit of a dumbing down of the character, just really making this part accessible for people that did not practice that. Now, apparently it is a little bit slower than the cancel version, but the consistency is just so much better for me personally. So for other people that haven't really been able to do that cancel, this option is now available to you. Another change is to his no source stance or heat 1/1 string, which is no longer a wall splat. Thank goodness. Everything else about no source stance 1/1 is the same, including the counter hit. Another very big change is now his guard break setup gives +11 instead of +14. So now you're going to be no longer to do the back to 2 heat engager off of hit, instead a guaranteed 2/2. Which is not bad at all, considering all the things you can do out of with those frames at 2/2. I think this was a good change. Even at +11, this is still very deadly at the wall with flash, as you can see. So again, very good change. I think out in the open, it's good to have just a guaranteed 1/1, but just keep in mind that you can still flash and you can still get your heat engager at the wall. Now let's talk about Yoshi's flash. Flash is the same speed, but now it's 5 frames slower on whiff and on block. And that applies for his 1 sword stance version and his no sword stance version. So now it's -20 on block, launch punishable on block, and it should be a lot easier to punish. Punishing flash was always a steep knowledge check for players because there's only specific circumstances where Yoshi's going to be able to flash without being completely a YOLO. But now players are able to, even without knowing that, you'll be able to punish Yoshi, at least with a smaller punish. Whereas players that could always bait out the flash, or at least more consistently bait out the flash, are able to get an even larger punish. And I think that's a fair change because while it's easier for people who don't know Yoshi's flash windows to be able to punish him, it was always easy for Yoshi at the same time to be able to flash people just on a guess as well. They could do a YOLO flash. So for Yoshi players that depended a little bit too much on YOLO flashing, this is going to be a lot tougher. It's going to be a lot tougher in general because even people who are great at flashes or can at least have a better guess on the flashes are just going to get a lot more punished for it. So between this and the spin nerfs that Yoshi got in the previous patch, it's going to be a lot harder to, I guess, be a threatening on the defensive side of things. You're really going to need to be really good on your matchup knowledge in order to shake off pressure as Yoshimitsu now. Yoshimitsu's forward 2 just frame is a lot easier to do now. In fact, now you don't even need to time it when you hit the opponent. So now you just get 33 damage instead of just getting the nerfed animation like this for the, what was that, 15 damage. So now you can try to spam the 2 and you'll be able to get that 33 damage. Whereas when you time it with the opponent, you get a 35 damage with the blue sparks. This is actually a pretty underrated change, I think, because it's only 2 less damage than the blue sparks version, but with that you get so much more consistency in hitting the opponent. As opposed to the 15 damage, you can pretty much guarantee that if you get it on hit, you're going to get 33 damage, which is huge because unlike in practice mode where the opponent's standing there, you both are going to be moving around or having different ranges. Your opponent might be coming in for a different attack, and you can basically just come in and kind of have like a ghetto demon paw of sorts for Yoshi to hit him. Combine that with the fact that it's also safe on block, I think this is actually a pretty great tool for Yoshimitsu to have, especially as someone that had a struggles to get in sometimes. So before you've usually had to do like 3 tilde 4, but I think I'm just saying that if this isn't something that you're already thinking of using, it's kind of easy to forget this move in neutral, especially. I'm just saying to just think about it. Another great change for Yoshimitsu is his sidestep 2. It's been set up to 16 frames, and the combo you get out of it is aligned so that you can get your normal bread and butter. Since it's coming out of your sidestep, it's now faster than his sidestep 1, and is really valuable as a sidestep launcher when you get a really good sidestep in whip. So really good change for that. Sword Sweep now does recoverable damage on hit. It only did 12 damage, so this is actually not a huge deal. Everything else about the move is pretty much the same, but it's a fairly small nerf. So the other half of that Sword Sweep Wall Oki is his forward 1+2, which they've changed to now no longer flip over the same way for the grounded opponents. As you can see, it's now only +3, and you would not have enough time to set up that Sword Sweep in one sword stance. And in no sword stance or in heat, let's just activate heat real quick, you still get that advantage. So you can see it's +13, and that gives you enough time to set up the Sword Sweep when they actually do it. Personally, I would have preferred if this was gone completely as well, but you know, it's here. Another big change to the heat forward 1+2 is that it uses far more heat gauge. So as you can see, it uses about a third of your bar, a little bit under your third of your bar now. Very hefty price. But now his forward 1+2 is safe on block and no sword stance in heat as well. Whoops. Speaking of moves that are now safe on block, we have Yoshi's back 2 string. It was -12, and now it's -9 with less pushback. Now, even at -12, you really couldn't punish it because of the pushback, and I think that's for that reason. This is actually a pseudo nerf, even though it seems like a buff on paper. That's because when you're able to hit people with 2-2 when stand blocking, they'll be so far away that when they try to capitalize on their frames, Yoshi might be able to capitalize on them coming in. But now, they're at a range where they could still use their offense and actually use those frames, even if it's not a direct punish. Either way, it's not a huge deal, but I think it's a very slight nerf to this move. I think it's a very slight buff as well because it has slightly less recovery on whiff. It's a whiff on the high, so if you duck the high, you have a little bit less time to make that launch punish. Yoshimitsu's 4/4 string has also been pretty impactful changes because it has increased in damage from 12 to 16 per hit, and has also been sped up to be 12 startup frames, meaning that this is now Yoshimitsu's most damaging 12 frame punish, even more so than his down forward 1/4. This actually puts his standing 4/4 string in a very interesting spot because for 13 frames you could use down forward 1/4 to a little bit gain some distance, or you could use 4/4 to keep him close and for more damage. But at 12 frames you can use 4/4 for more damage, or you could stick to 2/2 for the plus frames and mix-ups. So very, very nice change for Yoshimitsu, having this now a 12 frame option. The next really big change for Yoshimitsu is now his while standing 1/2 is now 13 frames. Our prayers have been answered. We finally have a 13 frame while standing punish. Very big buff, since Yoshi's while standing punishers were pretty much non-existent up until 14 frames with this move. So now it's still a worse 13 frame punish than most of the cast, but still pretty nice, especially at the wall where you can get a nice wall splat. Finally, we can get a while standing punish on Brian's hatchet kick, and thank goodness there aren't going to be any new lows that are going to be -12, completely negating this. Now we got to talk about some nerfs. So one is his health recovery nerfs. So for all of his health recovery attacks, the yellow bar only increases by an additional 1 instead of 4, while the recoverable health increases by 4 instead of 10. So this is on top of the gray recoverable health that everyone gets. Yoshi only gets an additional 1 yellow health, and now gets 4 additional recoverable health on top of his moves for all of his recoverable health moves. This is fine. I think this is not too crazy impactful, but it does mean that backspins are a bit more costly now that you're effectively not getting that yellow health back now. So I think this is a good change. I think my idea of taking health and giving health in my other video would have been a cooler idea, but I'm pretty good with these changes. And as well, on the recovery side is also some nerfs to his damage side. Yoshi has his 1 jab nerfed in his damage, his 1/1, his 3/1, his 3/2, 1+2. See his Dragonfly forward 1+2, and his up forward 1+2 is down from 45 to now 40 damage. With each of the other moves, they each took around 2 or 3 damage off. So I think in terms of getting his damage down, I think this was a step in the right direction. Had it not been a crazy season, I think we could have used a little bit more. But in this case, I think it's fine. There's also some quality of life changes, such as to his down 2 and to his down forward 3/1, which each of them has had their properties changed a bit to hit more consistently, apparently. But besides that, that's pretty much it for the changes for Yoshimitsu in Season 2. My overall thoughts, Yoshi's more or less plays the same as he did in Season 1. Same combos, same game plan, and a bit more options with the Flea stance now, which is nice. Flash being much riskier, though, means that it's that much more important for Yoshi to know the matchup and catching on to the opponent's tendencies, which I think it's good. For Yoshi matchup stuff, check out Keeble Mega's channel. In addition to great gameplay, he has Yoshi punishment guides for most, if not all, the characters, and recently uploaded for Season 2 as well. In Season 2, a lot of characters received moves or changes to their moves that really messed with how they play and messed with their identity, and thankfully that's not really the case with Yoshimitsu in Season 2. The stuff that they've given him are pretty much in line with how he already functioned in Tekken 8, so if you're a fan of Tekken 8 Yoshimitsu, Season 2 Yoshimitsu is not going to be too much different for you, which I think is a good thing. So that's it for this video. Hopefully it was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Laters.